Here to kick off hour number 2 is one of my friends from NFL Network's draft coverage, sitting directly to my left last night and also for tonight's coverage that begins at 7 Eastern time for night 2 and rounds 2 and 3, and a man who is all about Big Noon on Fox, Joel Klatt. Good to see you, sir. How are you, brother?
It's good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Absolutely.
I'll tell you, the 8 p.m. kick last night was a shock to my system. I'm normally up and it's noon and let's go.
Big 8. It's not called Big 8.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's not what it's called. It's called Big Noon. And that was a heck of an atmosphere, too.
Oh, my goodness.
I know you and I, we both showed up at the set at the same time, obviously with the same car over here, and then we just walked out there and we saw the massive humanity that was behind our set. And it was like, whoa, okay.
I just kept thinking to myself, like, what a year for this town in terms of football. And you think of the years and years of disappointment that Michigan fans have had, that the Lions fans have had, and now the Lions go to the NFC Championship game. Michigan wins the national championship, and then last night was almost a culmination of that. It was like a celebration of football and fandom, and it was really special.
Yeah, it was a party when the Lions traded up to go on the clock.
And you said it perfectly. You said, like, everyone just like ran. Yeah. It was just a sea of people running towards the stage.
We were in the back end of the massive humanity, and the fans would be, belly up to right up to our set and just waving and what have you. And I turn around in the commercial break, and they all just start running for the stage.
As soon as the graphic went to like the Lions
here are on the clock, and then I'm like,
it was awesome.
That's what I said on the internet. It's something we said. No, they just ran into the draft hall.
So we were
all psyched to watch it.
We were in the casino last night, and there was about 500 people when the Lions went on the clock. The whole building just started chanting, "Let's go Lions!" It was incredible.
It's so good.
Where were you last night?
Yeah, the MGM Casino.
Okay, very good. I had no idea.
Interesting.
Look at what's going on when they're not on the clock.
You didn't even know.
Oh, my gosh. All right.
Goodness.
So I know what your reaction was because you had it directly to my left on the air. Your next day thoughts on Michael Penix Jr. going to Atlanta 8th overall is what?
I think that we are, some are conflating two truths, which is you draft the player that you most want, and the fact that, like, well, Penix wasn't a top 10 talent. I guess that's not too true, but they're conflating two things. You can say that Michael Penix deserved to be in the top 10 and also say, why in the world did Atlanta make that selection? I don't understand it, in particular because of the contract for Kirk Cousins. If you're going to give Kirk Cousins $100 million, you've got to go completely on board with winning a championship in that window that you opened up with Kirk Cousins. You don't do that by thinking about 2028. I understand the succession plan, and we've seen the succession plan work at different organizations, namely Green Bay. But this is not a quarterback that needed time to develop. In a lot of ways, outside of Caleb maybe, but even maybe with Caleb in the equation, Michael Penix was the most pro-ready guy in the draft from the quarterback position, just because of what he does from the pocket, what he was asked to do at Washington under Kalen DeBoer, the amount of times per game that he would sit in the pocket and have to read things out down the field, make post-snap decisions, throw the ball with leverage and accuracy and pace down the field. Like, he did all of those things. He's ready to play. Go sit behind Kirk Cousins? If I was Michael Penix, I would be more furious than even Kirk Cousins. I waited all that time. I had all those injuries. I got myself to Washington, had these 2 amazing years. I'm an older guy. What's more valuable in the NFL, being drafted in the top 10 or getting a second contract? Getting a second contract. How does Michael Penix get on the field to prove himself ready for a second contract? Now, when's his second contract going to be? I just don't understand. And you also just don't win a championship when you have a mountain of dead cap space. So I don't understand it. I think that if I was Michael Penix, I don't know how quickly I would sign. I don't know how much he can force his issue, but I want to play. What do you mean great, good. I'm glad. I'm so thankful I'm in the top 10. Now, what in the world?
Because I thought immediately when this happened, and this being Kirk Cousins signing, that freed up Atlanta to not need to have a quarterback 8th overall. going into the Super Bowl, knowing Atlanta's new situation, 8th overall, they're definitely moving on from Desmond Ridder. They have a new head coach in who can absolutely be married at the hip with somebody that they draft 8th overall. And at the time, the tea leaves were so being misread, fully guilty as charged, I thought they might flip the 8th overall pick to Chicago for Justin Fields.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Certainly since we found out you could get Justin Fields for a 6th rounder next year. But I'm just saying that when they signed Cousins, that allowed Atlanta the freedom to choose anything but an 8th overall
to get better. That's the point. It freed them up to get better. There are limited resources. When you've got a cap and 53 spots, you don't have the luxury of, college football and recruiting a kid and with 85 scholarships and saying he'll be our quarterback in 3 years. Like that doesn't help.
So are you saying Penix should enter the transfer portal? To use that analogy
I kept thinking about that this morning, and I just kept thinking to myself, like, what leverage does he have? Well, I mean, he doesn't have to sign right away. I mean, would you be happy if you were Michael Penix?
I would sit here and go, boy, am I blessed to be in the NFL based on his whole journey, right? And I'm not saying you're not saying that he wouldn't be thinking that. I would then sit there and go, I have no control over it, so I'm going to make the best of it. And he's already said, I'm going to learn from Kirk and what have you. But yeah, I would think I've not only proven my ability to be drafted 8th overall, but to play right now. And this is not going to happen. But I don't know how he would, even by not signing, affect anything.
I don't know. I just kept thinking to myself, like, what leverage does this guy have?
Nothing.
He can't be very happy about it.
Kirk's
Nor does Kirk. That's right.
Kirk's only
exactly
leverage
right.
is to go out there and crush it, like Rodgers did in winning back-to-back MVPs when Jordan Love got drafted.
My issue is that they did not have a plan. Organizations that win Super Bowls have a plan in place. Who are we? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? So you have one plan in free agency, and then you turn around and you directly combat that because it was love at first sight when we saw him throw in the wind. Good for you. You're married. You don't go to the club, and you're not single. I don't know what to tell you. It's just not a cohesive plan. Right? Like once you're married, it's like you don't show up at the casino. Sorry, but you know what I mean?
The craps table was hot. Joel.
No, it wasn't. I don't know.
So it's like, well, he was the number 2 guy on our board. Like, good for you, but who cares? I don't understand it.
Joel Klatt here on the Rich Eisen Show. Well, speaking of not understand, by the way, we'd love having you on.
I hope he succeeds, by the way.
No, and
I hope
you
Kirk
have to
succeeds.
say that, by the way.
I'm hoping all of this works out for the best. I just don't understand how it will.
And you have to say that because so many people do misconstrue in our world criticism for or questioning of a strategy as if you're now rooting against them because you want to be right.
Not at all.
You're just being honest.
I hope I am dead wrong. I really do. This is one of those, I love Michael Penix. I covered him back at Indiana, saw his whole career maturation. I'm a big fan of Kirk Cousins as well. I want to see these guys succeed.
Yes.
And hopefully it does.
Joel Klatt here on the Rich Eisen Show. We love having you on our show Fridays after the draft in the Draft City because the last time this did, in fact, happen was in Nashville the day after the Giants drafted Daniel Jones.
This is what my wife says is I'm too critical. But I still don't go to the club. You know what I mean?
You most certainly do not, sir. Now here we are the day after the Giants had an opportunity to draft a rookie quarterback 6th overall, and J.J. McCarthy turned it down. For Malik Neighbors, do you agree with that Giants choice last night?
I don't believe that the Giants have been – I'm trying to play this as well as I can. You always lead me to the places that – I don't believe that the Giants have, in our tenure covering the draft, I've covered it for about 10 years, they've been easily a bottom half draft team. Easily. They're similar to kind of what I was just talking about with Atlanta. They're not cohesive. Doesn't feel like there's a great plan. It feels kind of ready, fire, aim a lot of the times. I said after that draft, I think that the Giants set themselves back, and I believe that they set themselves back again in this draft. I don't believe that they have the answers at the most important position in football to move forward, to compete not only for their division, but in a conference that is only getting better. I mean, you look at that conference, the NFC is ridiculously difficult. Detroit got better last night. San Francisco is not going anywhere. You're going to have to deal with those teams. Chicago is going to be a real threat. And I just don't see how the New York Giants got themselves better to even win their division last night.
They could have been knocking on the Patriots' door, or doing the old John Cusack Say Anything with the boombox standing outside, like, please, let's make a trade. And the Patriots are like, no, we're sticking and staying with Drake May. And the Giants couldn't do anything about that because they were too low down. I guess they didn't have McCarthy graded in the same way as maybe the Vikings did, which
is fine.
That may be their sense of it.
That's fine. And by the way, that's better for JJ. One thing, you just had Dan on, and he was talking about the location and fit for JJ, and I totally agree with everything he was talking about the great situation for a rookie quarterback that J.J. McCarthy is in. And in a lot of ways, if I was J.J. McCarthy, you don't want to say publicly, nor would he, that, oh, man, like, I probably didn't want to go to the New York Giants. But if you look at the two situations and the situations for a young quarterback to succeed, he went to the better place. Talked to him last week when I was in Ann Arbor, and he told me, he's like, man, I would do anything to make sure I go to Minnesota.
He said that.
100%. And even to the point where he thought, listen, if Minnesota wanted to deal up to Los Angeles to 5, or like if that was going to play out where they felt like the Giants were really in play and Minnesota was going to have to move up, JJ was like, I'd be texting coach and be like, do the deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's great that he got to the spot that he wants to go, because it does make complete sense. Again, I had my phone blowing up during the draft from Giants fans basically saying, should we have taken JJ? I'm like, listen, I'm biased. I think the kid's a winner. I think him on a New York stage would have been electric, but they must have felt differently. And Malik Neighbors is going to go there, I guess, for Drew Lock or Daniel Jones, who they have one more year of for sure.
So Atlanta double-dipped, and New York still doesn't have an answer.
So what I guess you would rather double dip than not having an answer, right?
Well, yes, if you put it that way, I would rather have two answers rather than none. So maybe New York is the one that we should all be scratching our heads out in the top 10.
Joel Klatt here on the Rich Eisen Show, getting ready for tonight's night 2 of the NFL Draft. Who do you want? Who would you pound the table for if you were in draft room saying we're not leaving the second round without this guy?
Oh, gosh.
Who would that be for tonight?
I think that the most impactful, there's going to be 2 players selected tonight, both defensive backs, that I think we're going to look up in a few years and think to ourselves, like, how did these guys with their instincts, with their football IQ, their ability, their athletic ability, how did they fall into the second round? Mike Sainristil from Michigan, Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Those 2 guys are going to make a huge impact on their next organization. And in particular in this day and age when you've got to be a hybrid player in the middle of the field and be able to cover in man and be able to defend the run and have ball instincts and all those, like those 2 guys, I think that those guys are going to have really good careers.
Okay, and then last night, who are we not talking about that we should, because I'm too fixated, or we're too fixated on the Penix to Atlanta?
Well, Chicago probably isn't getting their due with what they've done now and now what they've created around Caleb. But the other one that's just kind of like gone by the wayside is Jim Harbaugh placing his stamp, his blueprint on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I made this point in a couple of conversations and then on social media. Justin Herbert, didn't need a target for 2nd and 11. He needs to be in 2nd and 5. And that's the blueprint that Jim Harbaugh has. How does J.J. McCarthy become the best version of J.J. McCarthy? Be in the blueprint of Jim Harbaugh. How does Justin Herbert become the best version of Justin Herbert? Play in advantageous situations. That's what Jim Harbaugh does. His entire MO is about advantageous situations for his offense, making sure that everything complements one another so that you can go out there and win the football game. And that's why I think Herbert's going to have a lot of success. He might not throw for 4,500 yards and lead the league in yardage like he has over his first few years, but he's going to have a better chance to win. And so I think that's a pick that we've kind of glossed over.
I love that, by the way, because you have been talking about, Chris, for weeks, voicing what Charger fans might be saying, which is who's going to be Justin Herbert's weapon.
Or if I'm Herbert, just like, what are we doing?
But I had not heard it said like that. He shouldn't be worried about who's my weapon for 2nd and 11. He needs to be in 2nd and 5.
That's great. It's a great point, great explanation, and I think that makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to sort of pause and
pretty smart there, Joel.
I had not heard that.
Appreciate
that said, as well, before I let you go, let's gloss a little bit on the Bears. Rome Odunze.
Yes.
Caleb and Odunze took the same commercial flight to Detroit from Los Angeles. They were on the same private jet this morning going to Chicago, and everything else that's going on there is really exciting. And the Bears fans should be legit excited for real.
Yeah, I think so. Caleb's been the #1 quarterback for this draft for 2 straight years. Like this, this is not just your normal #1 pick. We've known for a long time that this is a guy, he's generational, as we all say, and you got another weapon for him, and they've got more pieces, or it's not just these 2 rookies that are going to try to go in there and succeed on a historically franchise that hasn't succeeded. Now you go in there with pieces, with a plan. And as soon as they draft those 2 guys and I start thinking about that passing game and what it could possibly be, I'm like, man, build the dome. Build the dome as quickly as possible on that lakefront. Let's go.
Right,
I want to see some offense.
Build it, and Kurt Warner heard that and he goes, I agree with that. Joel, thanks for coming on. I look forward to tonight, just like I loved being with you last night.
Tonight will be fun.
It's going to be fun, and and it's just even better that you're no longer the voice of my misery every November. And part of the reason why is because the man to your left right here helped change that. That's Aiden Hutchinson.
There he is. What's up, Hutch? How you doing, man?
It's been a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, it has been a while.
I know.
Congratulations on everything.
Thank you. You too, man.
It has been a while. I think you might have actually also been at the mic that day that Michigan at one point lost its last regular season game in Michigan State when one of the most remarkable sack force fumbles and touchdowns
was an atrocious call.
Was robbed from that man.
Yeah, it was an atrocious call.
It still hurts my soul.
Robbed from that man. Clearly, it lingers in my mind as well. But you know what? All those wounds have been cauterized.
That's right.
It's true.
Thanks for coming on, Joel.
You bet.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.